Live long and prosper. This is just one of the many life lessons that Star Trek has taught us because of all the internal philosophies within the series. Star Wars does not have the lessons and philosophies quite like Star Trek does. This is why Star Trek is better than Star Wars. Better meaning that Star Trek's internal philosophies are more practical than Star Wars' are. According to Season 6, Episode 15 of Star Trek, Picard is given a choice to change some regretted decisions that he has made in his past. He comes to the realization that his original decisions were for the best. He said that they reflect his personality and identity. According to plato.stanford.edu, this episode relates to the philosophy or precedent and analogy, which are two central forms of reasoning. According to Season 5, Episode 11 of Star Trek, Doctor had a very hard decision to save the life of Harry Kim or the life of another crew member. He ended up choosing Harry Kim over the other crew member because he knew him on a more personal level. According to plato.stanford.edu, this episode would be an example of the philosophy of decision-making capacity. According to Season 2, Episode 9 of Star Trek, when Picard has to prove that Data can be considered an individual and have rights just like humans do. According to bu.edu, this episode can be an example of the philosophy of the relationships between science and morality. My opponent may say that Star Wars has much more complex characters than Star Trek. This statement is incorrect because complex characters are nothing without a complex storyline, dialogue, action, and the characters. They are all thought out and complex. While Star Wars might focus more on the characters and their past and future, Star Trek focuses on all of the elements to make the entire series more practical. My opponent may say that Star Wars has a better philosophical meaning of the genetics of parenting than Star Trek does, and this is because of the storyline of Anakin and his mother. This statement is incorrect because genetics is not even relevant to the storyline of Anakin and his mother. According to Nerdist.com, Dr. Matu is Star Trek stated in the genetic factors from our parents that make us who we are, what we look like, and how we act. The parenting relationships are beautiful in Star Trek because they are shown throughout genetics and developed. For example, Lita forms into a parenting figure for Nog. My opponent may say that Star Wars tells a story while Star Trek tends to preach. This statement is incorrect because preaching is teaching, but it does it in an interesting way. According to alumni.georgetown.edu, Star Trek not only tells a story, but it teaches skill and reasoning. It uses philosophy to open your mind to new ideas. Star Trek engages its viewers to think and to reason about philosophical topics, and it makes the series interesting. My opponent may say that Star Wars has a diverse universe that could easily tell and explain all the stories of Star Trek. This statement is incorrect because if Star Wars was able to tell all the stories that Star Trek does, why wouldn't it? Star Trek has much more content and practical reasoning than Star Wars ever will. According to adastra.ku.edu, Star Trek creates its own ideas, stories, and universe, while Star Wars is unoriginal. My opponent may say that Star Wars is a lot less political than Star Trek. This statement is incorrect because Star Trek uses political ideas to incorporate philosophy into its storyline. It makes the stories and lessons relatable to its viewers. According to inomaha.edu, Star Trek uses political ideas and opinions to shape the meaning of the episodes. It shows the effects of different opinions on different situations. Star Trek is better than Star Wars. This speech focused on why this is true by looking at the practicality of the philosophies. Star Trek is easily more practical when looking deep into the meaning of each episode. Star Trek is overall better put together and more meaningful than Star Wars will ever be.